please remind me we should always take a minute or so to invoke Sri Aurobindo and Mother to help us better understand in a collective consciousness the beauty and the power and the force and the truth of Savitri. In Purani's book, he makes a very interesting point, and it's something that I'd like to bring out to each of you. We are a very small group who loves Savitri. Purani says that while some have praised Savitri, another man has called it the worst poem in all of the English language. So we are a very small group who are willing to go more deeply. And actually, we can do our sadhana through Savitri. Everything is here in order to do it. And I've done a 35-part series, not completed yet, called the Savitri series, in which I put together everything that Mother has said on Savitri. It's very, very intense. She didn't want anyone to interfere with Savitri, not even make suggestions. But let's get into our passage. Because this is going to lead us to why the Avatar comes to Earth and what he is able to do and how he is often rejected. But now we begin. And Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant, and, lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, acclaimed their portion of ephemeral joy. Akin to the eternity whence she came, no part she took in this small happiness. A mighty stranger in the human field, the embodied guest within made no response. So we'll stop there for a moment. Sri Aurobindo capitalizes summoner, the brilliant summoner. His chant, how beautiful that he sings to us. And he sings of the new world. And these tribes of humanity who have hastened to join him in that chant are lured by the beauty of the apparent ways. They are not yet invoking the highest force, but they lay claim to their portion of ephemeral joy. It's a passing joy, but it is definitely a joy. It's a fleeting joy. But Savitri is allied to the eternity from where she came, and therefore took no part in this small happiness, which is the happiness of ephemeral joy. because she is a mighty stranger in the human field. Therefore, the embodied guest, the divine force, the divine presence within, made no response. So interesting. That she could come to earth, but still she's a stranger in the human field. And therefore, the divine within her makes no response to this small claim of ephemeral joy. Any questions thus far? It's only 6, 7, 8 lines, but they are very powerful.
There is this, and Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant. These are the tribes that hastened to join, or it is she who hastened to join? Who is?
No, she awoke among those tribes.
Who hastened?
The tribes are hastening to join the brilliant summoner's chant. So she's awakened amongst them because she is the Divine Mother come to earth, even though she's a mighty stranger in the human field at this point. And the divine within her doesn't make any response. The tribes are the tribes of humanity.
Narad?
Yes.
Can I say that the presence of Savitri enabled these tribes to join the brilliant summoner's chant? Like, because of her presence, they hastened?
No, we have to understand what preceded all of this. It wasn't the presence of Savitri that did it. She just awoke among these tribes. We're getting the first glimpse of her awakening among these tribes. But previously, you see, it is man who lifts up the burden of his fate, because he's the leader here with his uncertain mind. And he's staring at the future's covered face. But then this summoner begins to chant. Capital S on summoner, so powerful. The divine summoner. And Sri Aurobindo speaks to us at great length about the call from the divine. Have you all read that? Are you familiar with what he writes about the call? Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Yes, you would like to hear it? Let me see if I can find it. I have to reduce the size of this. And I have to find it now. Let's see. Quotes. For me, it has been one of the most important things of my life from Sri Aurobindo. Okay. Here it is. The call, once decisive, stands. That's his first part of the sentence. The call, comma, once decisive, comma, stands. The thing that has been born cannot eventually be stifled. Even if the force of circumstances prevents a regular pursuit or a full practical self-consecration from the first, still the mind has taken its bent and persists and returns with an ever-increasing effect upon its leading preoccupation. There is an ineluctable persistence of the inner being, and against it, circumstances are in the end powerless, and no weakness in the nature can for long be an obstacle. So that call we are answering. And so it's the call that these tribes are hastening to join. But it's even more than a call, it's a summoner's chant. How beautiful. So Savitri does awake amongst them. She comes into manifestation at this point. At least Sri Aurobindo is telling us this. I have spoken to you previously that Sri Aurobindo honors the tradition of the great epics of all time by not beginning in the beginning, but beginning he begins somewhere in the middle with the book of birth and quest telling us about Savitri. Here, this is a kind of flashback that he's showing us how the divine comes to earth, especially the Divine Mother. So I'll continue a little, unless there are some questions. The call, which we've just heard about, that wakes the leap of human mind. Its checkered, eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. Time's message of brief light was not for her. In her, there was the anguish of the gods, imprisoned in our transient human mold, the deathless, conquered by the death of things. We'll learn much more about that a little later, but we can see here that this call, or this chant as we've seen above, that wakes the leap of human mind. And we have all had this experience of something that has suddenly moved us in life. And we said, yes, that's it. That's where I want to be. That's where I would like to live. That's what I would like to dedicate my life to. But this call that wakes the leap of most human minds, with its checkered, eager motion of pursuit, it's always an eager motion of pursuit when it wakes the leap. And it is checkered, it goes back and forth. And it's fluttering hued illusion of desire. He says it's an illusion of desire because when we rise above the mind, even into the higher mind, and certainly into the illumined and intuitive mind, we see that desire does not truly exist, nor does sin, which is the great downfall of most religions, positing that there can only be two solutions. One is damnation, and the other is a heavenly reward. So all of this has visited Savitri's heart like a sweet alien note. It's not distasteful. It's a sweet note, a sweet alien note. But time's message of brief light, very important here, brief light, was not for her. Why? In her, there was the anguish of the gods, the anguish that is imprisoned in our transient human mold. And what is it? It's the deathless, conquered by the death of things. Yes, the supermental was brought down by Sri Aurobindo in his body, placed into the earth. 20-something years later, 6 years later, but 23 years later of Mother's life, she began on the transformation. And eventually, there will not be death. But in Savitri, at this point, there was the anguish of the gods who are imprisoned in our transient human mold. And this deathless, conquered by the death of things, tells us so much, people. It tells us that the great souls who take embodiment on the earth, who decide to go through this evolutionary process, often die very young. I can tell you stories of great musicians, artists, who just coming into their prime in their 30s, early 30s, die. Inexplicably, or at times from some cause that was prevalent at the time. Schubert died around 33 years old, I think. Some of the great poets did not live very long. I guess we could say amongst them, perhaps Keats, Shelley. Why does the deathless have to be conquered by the death of things? Because they take birth on earth in a human body. And the human body has to decay. It has to grow old. We have a few examples of people living to 400 years old, not very many. Many people living now to 110, 120. But still, the body ages, and the deathless are conquered by the death of things. Another reason the deathless are conquered by the death of things is that they give themselves as a holocaust to uplift humanity. And we will see a little later that often humanity refuses them. And, well, I don't want to get into those lines yet because they're very powerful still. Any questions up to this point or any thoughts that you'd like to share?
There is this, I'm coming back to this beginning, this bothering me beginning of this paragraph. And Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant. And, lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, acclaimed their portion of ephemeral joy. This is something very interesting because it tells us that all the human tribes, all these beings, all the Vish, what is in the Veda, Vish, those who entered this manifestation are actually in a hurry to join the real call of the divine. The real summoner, the fire, this is the Agni burning within the nature, summoner's chant. It is his voice. He's calling everyone to this journey of the divine. We all wake up to his call and, This is important. Lured by the beauty of the apparent ways. We were kind of distracted, or we were kind of attracted by something which is already there, forgetting the real purpose why we woke up here. It reminds me totally the hymn from the fifth mandala, number 1. Abodhi Agni Samidha Jananam. The Agni evoke by the kindling of those who are born in the body. He is awaking. He is there to call all of us who are born in the body. We are all awaking by his force and being kind of redirected to ordinary apparent ways and the ephemeral joys. We kind of lose the track, as it were. And that repeats itself again and again. And what is we reading afterwards? It is just confirming this kind of vision that all of us are here to follow his call, the divine call. It's so beautiful. Well, at least I see it in this way. I do not know whether it is totally in this way, but it sounds contradictory that they hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant. Why should they be in a hurry to do it? Because it is the proper inner nature of everyone.
This is true, but many are called, but few respond.
Right, because lured by the beauty of apparent ways, we were kind of,
we're always lured by the apparent ways.
All right.
The easy life, if you will, to make it short, and yet they lay claim to their portion of this very fleeting joy. They lay claim to that. Mm-hmm. So we have to see that it's not everyone who hears the brilliant summoner's chant. There are some tribes that do, of men. There are some ancient tribes that, you can find in all religions. I use the word very loosely. Great masters. You can find this in the poets, Kabir, Rumi, Hafiz. They have all touched something. And many, many poets, even Henry Vaughan, Sri Aurobindo says that Henry Vaughan brought something down of the overmind in one of his poems. Imagine that. So there are many who are called. But Sri Aurobindo originally said, if I had only 100 people, I could change the world. And then eventually he reduced it to 12. Said, if I had only 12 people, I could change the world. He didn't get quite 12, yes.
I was reading something like on your website about this summoner's chant, because even I was like Vladimir, I was drawn to that, like what is this summoner's chant? Mm-hmm. And in one of the explanations of R.Y. Deshpande, he says it very beautifully that the brilliant summoner is the sun who is rising and calling everyone to move into activity. So,
yes, it's an interesting understanding of it, because he does use the word brilliant, which could imply the sun.
Yeah.
For me, it's more the divine presence that is the brilliant summoner.
Yeah.
And the chant is the divine singer. The one who sings to us and lures us, even though we're lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, and even though we acclaim our portion of ephemeral joy. At least some are answering, but not Savitri. And that's what we have to keep in mind, not Savitri.
With the sun, why I said that it's Agni, because usually chant, yes, coming as a flame, as a flaming word from within the heart. It's never from the sun. It's very, I don't remember where the sun would be associated with the chant. It's always coming from within the heart. And the flame in the Veda is not only personal flame, not only the kind of personal psychic being, but it is the presence within the nature, the divine presence which is aspiring for higher being, And all of us, and I think that this is Vedic imagery, animal kingdom, all the plants, minerals, stars, people, whatever they are, developed, undeveloped, they do not know, but they all are hastened to join this kind of, they're in a hurry to join this evolutionary journey, They do not know why. They cannot explain it. They have no idea why. They wake up and with this happy waking up in the morning, they are kind of trying to join again this new adventure, new day, and being lured by this beauty of apparent ways, they lose their track, but still that force is there. Still it is driving them forward.
It's a good point, and I agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember that they just lay claim to their portion, their small portion of ephemeral joy.
Yes.
So now this is a flashback again. Sri Aurobindo telling us about Savitri. A vaster nature's joy had once been hers, but long could keep not its gold heavenly hue, or stand upon this brittle earthly base. A narrow movement on time's deep abysm, life's fragile littleness denied the power, the proud and conscious wideness, and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form. The calm delight that weds one soul to all, the key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. So we see that, I'll skip around a little bit in this passage. We see that life's fragile littleness denies most of what she had brought, especially the calm delight that weds one soul to all, and the key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. Now, why has this happened? Well, even though a vaster nature's joy once was hers, it couldn't keep its gold heavenly hue or stand upon this brittle earthly base. Now, when the avatar first comes to the earth, he is not aware in this baby or child's body that he is the avatar. Because it is such a great shock to go from that height and enter a human body on earth. And life's fragile little, entering life's fragile littleness. That's a narrow movement on time's deep abysm. All that she had brought with her into the human form, life denied. And we're going to see that more and more as we go on. The cross is payment for the crown he gave. Will come on some lines later. And so all that she brought with her into the human form, again, very few in the world know of Mother or Sri Aurobindo. Amongst all these billions of people, you could say literally it's a handful. I wouldn't even say it's a million among these billions. So, this vast of nature's joy that once had been hers because she's the Divine Mother. She is the Shakti. It couldn't keep its gold heavenly hue or even stand upon this brittle earthly base. That power was very, very difficult because life's fragile littleness is a very small movement on the deep abysm of time. And all that she brought with her, the proud, the conscious wideness, and the bliss that she had brought with her into the human form, and the calm delight that weds one soul to all. And she has the key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. Vedic references here, Vladimir?
Well, the mother, yes, the Paraprakriti. In the Veda, we have Aditi and Diti and Prishni in between, and these are all kind of later they are kind of interpreted as sisters, Diti and Aditi. But truly speaking, it's one and the same mother who is Aditi in the realms of transcendental, and Diti in the realms of divided consciousness. And she is the mother, as she herself says, the mother, that she is the mother of Asuras and all the demons also. So they are also her children. And she is the one which is connecting the transcendental in this world as Prishni, the mother. Of course, it is hers there, and once was hers when she moves here. And here she doesn't have that life, that vaster nature's joy, which was once hers. And she cannot impose on. And it's quite interesting because Usha, when Usha comes down in the Veda, she's not really destroying things. It's quite interesting. She's refreshing as if things. Yeah? She is not transforming them by force. She's kind of illumining them from within, bit by bit, as these things permit her to illumine themselves.
Yes.
And that is the kindness she has. And even in one hymn, Rishi calls to her and says, Dawn, please illumine us faster, because when the sun comes, he will see us as thieves and robbers and will burn us to ashes. So please illumine us, transform us faster, don't delay your transformation. Because when supramental transformation comes, we will burn because we are not transformed yet. So she's very kind. She's doing it in a kind way. So here also,
yes,
you can see that kindness of her.
Yes. But we have to understand also that in future cantos, we are going to see the dark side of life very clearly, and how the divine has to go into the depths of the darkness to bring their light. So this is a wonderful, wonderful passage, powerful passage. And we will hear much more about Savitri very soon. Did you want to do a few more lines today? It's 10:40. this is Earth's grain that needs the sap of pleasure and tears, rejected the undying rapture's boon, offered to the daughter of infinity her passion flower of love and doom she gave. Now, many people have commented on Earth's grain that needs the sap of pleasure and tears. And we spoke with Nolini on this, and with Alok and with Amal Kiran, and I have their answers on all of them. But basically, it's this structure, this matter of Earth that needs the sap of pleasure and tears. Why do we need the sap of pleasure and tears? That's the human condition. We're always moving from joy to sorrow, sorrow to joy. And as a result, Earth rejected this boon of the undying rapture. And it offered to the daughter of infinity her passion flower of love and doom she gave. This passion flower, Amal had misunderstood. He thought it was passive flower. And Sri Aurobindo said, no, you're absolutely wrong. It has to stay passion flower. I have that someplace also, but so the passion flower of love and doom she gave. In vain now seemed the splendid sacrifice. What was that splendid sacrifice? Savitri's descent to earth and taking up a human form to show us that we could also become divine. Often Sri Aurobindo in his letters on yoga tells us that if I had not come in a human form, you would not have been able to either see me or to engage with me or do anything with me. I had to come in a human form to show you how to progress, how to rise to a higher consciousness. So, what was offered to the daughter of infinity? Earth's passion flower of love and doom was given to her. It's, in a way, all of this is very sad. And we'll see in the next few lines, we have a few minutes. A prodigal of her rich divinity, herself and all she was, she had lent to men, hoping her greater being to implant and in their bodies' lives acclimatize, that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. Now, in the earlier editions of Savitri, this line, and in their bodies' lives acclimatize, was not there. This was found by the archive people in a draft of Sri Aurobindo, a later draft. And I feel it does belong there. It's a beautiful line. So, the prodigal child, the prodigal son, And she gives everything of her rich divinity, herself and all she was, she had lent to men because she wanted to implant her greater being in their lives and even acclimatize in their bodies' lives this divinity, that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. And we see throughout Savitri how they want this earthly life to become the life divine. That is their purpose here. It is the purpose of Earth, not other planets, not other galaxies. And Mother's been to all of them. She has visited all of them. She knows the forms that are in all of them. And now, because we cannot go within, we send up rockets and spaceships to find another place where we could live with our same errors. Excuse me. She's a prodigal of her rich divinity. And herself and all she was, she had lent to men. She had lent to men. She didn't exactly give them to men as yet. We'll see this later. Because she wanted to implant her greater being and acclimatize this force of divinity in their bodies' lives so that heaven could grow native, naturally, on mortal soil. Anyone like to comment? Or anyone like to read that passage, Earth's Grain? You're welcome. We have a few minutes.
I had a thought like the passion flower. The passion flower is named the silence by the mother.
Yes.
And I was
silence, yes.
Yeah. So I was feeling that this was all offered in that. Because he's putting infinity there, the daughter of infinity, her passion flower. So somewhere to me it felt like it was offered in silence, the love and the doom. So though he has not explicitly mentioned it, but just the significance of it made me feel it's just present in us in a silent way, which we are not tuning into all the time.
Interesting thought. I will look up this correspondence between Amal and Sri Aurobindo on Passion Flower for the next time we meet, so we can have it a little bit clearer. But it's a good thought. So I think that's about all we should do today, because it gets a little more difficult after this. You see, Sri Aurobindo is going to take us to our mortality that is not able to bear the Eternal's touch, and as a result, what it does. But we'll keep that for next week, and I'm so grateful for all of you who attend and wish to go as deeply as possible into the beauty and the power and the truth and the mantra of Savitri.